All right, we should be good to go. Excited to be back and doing this again. Took a week off. I was enjoyed a nice camping trip last week, so it was good to get the episode last Tuesday done a little earlier, and then or 2 Tuesdays ago now, and then get back into it this week. So thanks for everybody who's tuning in. We've had a big jump in subscribers recently, so really appreciate that. And we're excited this summer to really start. Now that I have my own team practicing, I have a little more access to drill work. I've been envious of everybody else who can practice because I posting other people's drills is great, but you kind of feel like a bit of a hack. So I'll be excited to get some of the more drill work stuff coming in the next couple of weeks. And I am joined by Coach Jon Svec. If any of you have been following coaching development here in Canada over this pandemic, you already know who I'm talking to. Coach Svec runs all24.ca, which is an incredible resource. One of my favorite things throughout this pandemic has been seeing how Canadian football and coaching and developing the game has kind of been brought more to the forefront. I think a lot of coaches for a long time, myself included, were loving listening to American podcasts and watching whether it's clinics or YouTube videos or live streams like we're doing right now. Always about the American game, and Coach Svec has been working hard at all24.ca since, I think we were saying before, basically the same time that I got the idea to start doing some stuff with 3Down, and Sharp started doing virtual football clinic. So it's been great to see that brought to the forefront. And if you don't already follow Coach on Instagram and Twitter, as well as TikTok, which is something I want to get into doing a little more work as well. Just amazing resource there. So thanks for making the time to talk to us a little bit about linebacker play tonight, Coach.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on. I'm obviously watching all of your stuff as well, and just enjoying getting everything out there during this last year and a half of crazy times, and trying to develop and talk as much football as we can while we're locked away a little bit. It's starting to open up a little bit in different places, so that's great. But no, I'm happy to be on here talking some ball with you.
Absolutely. And I think I was saying to you before, I just had my second practice, I guess, with my summer team, and we'll have the full team together as of next week. So I know a lot of coaches are getting back into it, which is awesome. Go take a look back if you're new to the channel, or if you haven't checked out any of Coach Svec stuff with all24. There's lots of great stuff. Whatever problems are coming up, it was fun. We did our first Skelly last night, and I was all excited. We had the drone filming it, which is new for us. And I watched the film today. I was like, this is awesome, but we have so much stuff to fix. I'm going to different places, like I'm sure every coach is right now, trying to find, resources to help their athletes. So really excited to have you on and talk about something that I think when you talk about like the integral or the really important skills for any linebacker or anyone who's coaching linebackers, the ability to make decisions is super important. I had the benefit of being a D lineman, where I only had to go one direction. It was just whether I went way up the field or a little bit up the field, and playing linebacker, being able to be a good decision maker is critical to using whatever athleticism you have. And I know, I've played with and played against some guys that were great athletes that never played as fast as you thought maybe they could. And I've played with and against, players that had better careers than probably their 40 time or their 10-yard shuttle or their bench press should have allowed them to have, because they're great at making decisions and reading as a linebacker. I think, especially as a high school athlete, as much as you want to improve all the physical parts of your game, this is something that I think for athletes and coaches, this can really change, how successful your group is, right? You can only get so much faster. You can only get so much bigger and stronger. A lot of the gains in terms of the actual football plays that you make are made mentally, and being able to read through the triangle is a huge part of that, especially at the second level. So I'm going to turn it over to you here, Coach, and just excited to learn a little bit myself tonight.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks. And we had chatted a little bit about coming on here and talking some football, and this is just one of the first things that I sort of thought of. I think anytime we come on and we're doing clinics as coaches, the real goal is to try to present some stuff that anyone that decides to watch and take the time to tune in or watch this recording can actually use. So that's my real goal here. I think I'm going to try to talk about some universal concepts, some things that we can't control as defensive players, which is, what we're going to see, what the offense is actually trying to do to us. And then after that, I think within each coach, as you're watching this, the decisions that you make on how exactly you're going to react to those things might change based on your system or what you're seeing or what you really want to emphasize on stopping. But again, the universal part is that picture, that image that you're seeing is what I want to try to focus on here. So hopefully I'm successful kind of going through this. So triangle reads, my contact info is there. I'm happy to reach out and follow up and talk some football with anyone that has any questions afterwards or during. So that's great. So triangle read, we'll kind of define it, just talk about what that sort of means, some starting points. I'm throughout this process talking to a lot of coaches. Probably one of the most common things that I'm hearing or people that are reaching out. It's I'm just getting into this. My son or daughter is just starting playing football. I'm going to help coach because they need bodies. Where do I start? What do I do? So I really want to start with some basic starting point things with this topic and then expand a little bit for those that want that part of it. So that's what I'm going to try to do. Why do I think it's the superior way to do it? A little bit of a progression and then some thoughts on how you adapt that to your system. So that's kind of the table of contents here. We'll see if we can get through it. So simply, triangle read, it's a bit of a fancy term. It sounds a little abstract if you're not, a seasoned, maybe veteran coach, but really all it is it's a primary read of the offensive line with a secondary read of sort of that quarterback running back mesh. That's how I think about it. Some people really like the pure backfield read. I don't think that's wrong. In some systems that might give you a better key, especially if you're seeing a lot of two-back stuff. I know a lot of American coaches might teach a backfield read. If that's great, that's a good plan. I just think in the Canadian game, we see so much one-back, so many different things, and for many different reasons. I just think the offensive line read gives you more of a complete picture. If you can expand your vision and include that whole triangle, I just think it's a superior way to do it. Doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. It's just one thing, and we'll just talk about it tonight. Like anything, before the snap, you're already gathering information that's going to help you read the play and react to sort of the play. So, situation of the game, obviously, we're going to talk about certain looks you're going to get. That look, maybe a look of a run coming right at you, that might mean something a little different. If it's, 2nd and 15, you might want to react a little differently to that versus 1st and 10 or 2nd and 4 or 2nd and 1, right? So those situations are going to fall into play here when we're talking about the triangle read. This is not sort of happening in a vacuum. There's all these other things around that are going to influence your decision during the play. Down and distance, like I said, offensive personnel, you're going to have tendencies. If you're a player, your coach is going to prepare you. Coaches, we're already starting to think about tendencies in certain situations, field position, formation, all those things go into it. So I just to kind of override that, it's a triangle read, it's a picture, it's something there, but there's all these other things happening around you. We're going to take that into consideration as we're making this read. As a starting point, again, if you're coaching at younger levels, you're just getting into coaching yourself and you're with younger players that aren't as experienced, I do think that a guard read is an okay starting point. It's going to give you some information. It's going to get the linebacker's eyes sort of starting to be in the right spot. And it is going to help you sort of get to the play. So if you have even at some older levels, if you have a younger player who's not quite getting it, I do think this is a good starting point. So what that really involves is basically a read of one player. You're reading that near guard. The way I kind of have this drawn up and designed, we're talking basically about a 40 front with that sort of inside linebacker. That's the picture that we're kind of working on here. So that guard is right in front of you. What that guard does is going to give you a bit of a hint as to what the play is going to be. So obviously some kind of base block or a block coming right at you. Now you're thinking run. If you see that high hat, that kick step, that pass set, you're thinking pass. And a guard read helps you if you see that guard pull or something going on like that you're going to see in your conference. It's going to give you that information as well. So a read of just the guard is going to give you some information. It's not always going to be the best information, but I do think it's a good starting point. What you usually see, what I find with younger players, you start there and eventually the vision's going to expand. And even the triangle read that we're going to talk about, veteran players, 5th year U Sports players, their vision's going to expand past that. And they're seeing more than just that triangle. They're seeing most of the offensive line and the bombers coming in, and they're seeing a lot more. So starting with that one player read, I do think is a good starting point. and then you can sort of expand from there as your players develop or you go sort of up in level. So I do think that's okay. And then expanding your vision. So the big, picture of a triangle read is sort of this one right here, where I'm an inside linebacker. I'm seeing the tackle, the guard, the center, through to the running back, quarterback mesh. So I've heard it described different ways. There's different ways I like to hear people talk about it. Some I've heard people say, the bright lights are sort of the offensive line and the dim lights are the backfield. So you're seeing both, but your emphasis and your primary look is sort of that offensive line, that, those three players that are going to create that picture and sort of get you started towards the play. Within that, now you want to see the backfield, see where that running back's going. That's ultimately who you're going to end up trying to tackle if it's a run play, if it's a pass. And I do think this system is a pretty good plan for the RPO stuff that we're all trying to defend. Depending on how you want to react to that triangle, I do think this can sort of help you a little bit. So that picture right there is sort of what we're talking about when we talk about the triangle. That's the picture we're going to simulate in practice. And then we'll look in a game how that kind of translates to getting you to the point of attack quickly. Always want to talk about, you'll hear us at X talk about pictures. There's so many different pictures that you'll see show up time and time again on the football field. And that's what we really want to take into practice. If you see a certain situation showing up over and over again, that's what we want to recreate and simulate in our indie periods, our integrated indie, and maybe some competitive stuff in practice. And I think I'll show a little bit of that as we get to sort of the film and onward. So that's the triangle. That's the starting point, what we're going to talk about. And now I'm going to go through just a few specific looks or pictures that you're going to get when you're looking in that triangle. Now, again, the pictures are going to be consistent. You can't control the picture. So if you play in a league that you face a lot of inside zone, your linebackers are going to see this picture time and time again. If you're in a 40 front with two inside backers, your linebackers are going to see this picture. Now, how you want them to react to it might change from program to program or year to year, or maybe even week to week, because of what you're trying to defend, what you're trying to take away. So again, the reaction to it is definitely going to vary, but the picture is the picture. You're seeing a base block here, a kick out block from the tackle, and now this sort of double and chip developing with the guard center up to backer. I mean, you're going to see that in a lot of different situations, a lot of different ways, front side of the play, back side of the play. That picture right there is very, very consistently seen at our level. I'm sure at younger levels, if you're seeing any kind of run play. Within that, now that you've seen that picture, and again, I'm going to show ways that we drill it and players, really have this drilled into them that they're going to see this. Now our eyes want to go to that quarterback running back mesh. So within that, you're going to see a few things. So the first thing that I'll show you on film and that I've drawn here, you see that picture, you're on the front side of an inside zone, and the running back is taking the ball and pressing right to your gap. So how do you want to react to that? So your initial movement, how are you going to react based on your conference, what you're trying to take away? Sometimes you might want to just go down and hit it. You might just want to fly downhill, hit that guard, get in that guard, get in that B gap, and just go make the play because that's what you're trying to take away, right? Maybe you're a little slower to it because of you're playing a really play action team or RPO. So that, again, is negotiable. But if that back takes the ball and presses right to that gap, now you want to come up, meet the line of scrimmage, take on that guard, shed that block, and try to make that play. So that picture is going to be seen quite a bit. I'll focus on that a lot. The next look is that running back taking the ball and coming right at your gap. Again, how are you going to tell your players to react to that? And as a player, how are we handling that situation when we see it? Because it'll show up quite a bit. Next picture looks the same initially. You have the base block, you have the double and chip coming at you. They're attacking your gap here. But now the running back takes the ball and they're going to cut it back right away. So again, if you are on the initial look, if you're deciding as a program, as a coach, to be a little slow on that, now you're alive to sort of rock back and be a presence on this cutback. If you know your opponent's just going to take it and hit it up front side, and you want to be aggressive on this, that's great. But now you're going to be right up in that B gap, and it's a little tougher to rock back. It's sort of one person, one gap now, and everyone's just going to sort of handle it, which is great too. If that's your plan, I think that's fine. But it's just up to you what you're seeing and how you want to react to it is my thought.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction because I think a lot of the times, the coaching of run fits the level of detail of the offense you're playing will dictate the level of detail your players need to respond with, right? And I think that's something, obviously, as you get to the older or more advanced levels, becomes more relevant. But for example, if you want your high school athlete or the kids I'm coaching in summer football, if you want them to be confident with their actions, they got to be confident with, the thought process. And I think that's one thing where I think we all, or a lot of people, it's pretty easy to find stuff on like basic run fits, right? Hey, if the D tackle's in the A gap, the linebacker is usually in the B gap, right? And I think a lot of players can switch their brain off after that and say, I have the B gap. Well, depending on the level of football you're playing, right? Obviously, you talk about rocking back and falling back towards the cutback and stuff like that. You want the athlete knowing exactly what you want them to do.
Right.
The whole if then thing is really, really hard. I think, as a linebacker, I think it's really valuable for you as a coach to spend some time thinking about that. Hey, do I want, I know most of the time, the defense that I've been around the most, we want to peel the doubles off the D lineman, right? We want to make plays across the board. We don't want our one tech's going to get doubled some. That's the life of a one tech, but it's also the Will's job to peel off, that double team and hit it. Whereas you watch other teams play and they're saying, hey, you know what? Your one tech's going to get doubled no matter what. Maybe the team you're playing is just hammering the doubles. It doesn't matter whether you go peel it off or not by playing the gap fast. We're going to let the linebacker stay at depth and like you say, be alive when that thing cuts back. But I think if there's any doubt in your player's mind, well, what are those two things does coach want me to do? And I think that's the interesting thing, especially with zone blocking, is you watch a lot of the response to some of the tight front stuff, and that is the zone that's really hitting back behind, the backside tackle, right? You're reading the defensive end or the edge player, and that thing's hitting on the backside. It can be really easy for your linebacker to get drawn towards the football, and all of a sudden you have an open B gap front side if they're too early with that, or vice versa. If you're hoping in your run scheme that, hey, we really want the Mike to be able to, fall back and be a presence, as you said, on the cutback. Well, now if they go slam the double, they're never going to be there. So I think that level of detail, I think is irrelevant, or is very relevant to helping create confidence in your players. Not just what gap do I have, but, what tempo do I want to play through that gap based on the picture I see.
For sure. And I think that's, as coaches, I think that's something we can dial and adjust and change, year to year, personnel. That's why I say that look from what the offense is doing is not changing. They're running an inside zone in this direction. But, how are we reacting to that? What exactly, like you said, what exactly do we want our linebackers to do when they see that? And how are we going to react to it? So I think that's good. I think that's a good point. So inside, front side of the inside zone, back hits. Front side of the inside zone, back cuts back. Those are two pictures you're going to see. Again, however you want to decide to tell your players to react to that, something we can practice easily. I'll show you that we can practice and work on and gain that confidence that you're talking about. Inside, backside of an inside zone. So this is another tough one. I mean, how do you want to play this? There's different ways as a team that you can decide you want to play this look, but you're going to see it. If you're playing a 40 front, 4 D linemen, 2 backers against an ace back set, you're going to see this look, right? Their double teams coming now, working away from you, and that backside tackle is coming right for that backside backer. How do you want to play it? Are you asking your linebacker to control that B gap and really just win that battle with physicality and squeeze him and have that B gap? That's great. Work it. Are you running some exchange stuff or allowing them to win with speed? How do you want to play it is up to you as a coach, but you're going to see it and you need to plan for it, and your players need to know the plan and have some confidence in it. So backside of an inside zone, that's a picture that we'll show you how we drill it, and it's something you need to be prepared for. And then, I should say this, that pure guard read is, again, great, but you'll even see on these first few pictures, it's kind of giving us a false read if we're just looking at that guard, right? The offensive play is point of attack is in this direction, but that guard is stepping this way. So this is why we talk about expanding the vision to be superior, where you see the base and the double and chip developing, and the play, the point of attack is this way. Again, how are you going to react to it? So I do think that's giving you a little more info. Great thing about the triangle read is obviously seeing those pullers. So if you're playing in a conference where you're seeing a lot of pulling guards or pulling tackles or pulling centers, if you're reading the triangle, now your eyes are in the right place. to defend that, because the backfield can get creative now. They can run it with that sort of, we call it an ugly set, where it's taking the handoff on the same side and bending back. And now if you're doing a pure backfield read, you're again getting some false reads. If your eyes aren't in the right spot, these are hard plays for young players, especially to know how to get to the point of attack. Again, how your ultimate fit is going to end up is not really our topic tonight. There's different ways to do it, but seeing this and getting you started to the point of attack, I do think is key, right? Again, if your eyes are in the wrong spot, there's a lot of traffic in there. You're not going to see that pulling guard, and you're not going to be able to react to it. Now, how fast do you want to be? Are they going to play action or RPO you? How fast do you want your backside linebacker to be based on who you're playing against? It's up to, again, you guys. But I think seeing it is important, and then understanding how your players should react to it, I think, is important.
I think that's a big one, especially for high school players and coaches to understand is, when gaps move, your gap moves, right? It's as simple as that. You have to have some adjustment in your defense. And obviously, I know some people where the nose will have to climb over the center. Some people where like you said, with the linebacker have to play over the top. But again, I talk about my summer team on here a lot because that's my experience predominantly, certainly on defense in coaching. And my first year we played between London and Essex, both heavy power counter teams, heavy power counter. So we knew if we were going to go anywhere in the playoffs, we have to be, really conscious of those fits. And one of the hard things about them is you might see 3 straight zone teams, right? Where your backers bury, and then all of a sudden you got a puller. Yeah. And, it doesn't take much to be out leveraged and outmanned at the point of attack. And I think it was one of the most liberating things and made my linebackers more confident. We had great kids too, particularly that year at the second level. But when they really 2 or 3 weeks in, when we stopped fooling them on counter, I was like, okay, we have a chance to be really good on defense. And the confidence, they hit zone so much harder because they're not worried that zone is, you worry about it on counter, but it affects all your other run fits, right?
For sure.
And that's a big one, I think, that I'm always conscious to remind myself is usually, and we've got great JV coaches in our program, but you're trying to plug so many holes in the boat in JV. You don't always have the time to go in detail in the run fits, and or you might not get a lot of pullers. Right. And that was one huge thing. Well, what do you mean, coach? I got the B gap. I'm going to go run through the B gap. Well, B gap's gone, man. B gap's on the other side of the field. You got to go find that B gap on the other side of the double team. And that's a huge point. One thing I always try and stress early in the season, because I always knew how much it affected us on plays with a puller, but I never realized how much that indecision, that like waiting for the football we were doing because we weren't clear and clean on seeing, through the guard into the backfield and diagnose, hey, is this zone and I can just fill it, or is this counter power switch? And I got to get on the move and find that gap.
No, it's huge. And the way you described it, it's sometimes with players, it's just a switch that gets flipped, right? And all of a sudden they're seeing it. And that's when you got a shot. Things are looking good. So I think that's good. And I think, again, being consistent with this, it's hard to say, see the puller, but read the backfield on the zone plays, but see the puller, you can't do that. So it's what's our plan? It's reading that triangle. I think that's a good, consistent way to do it. Outside zone, obviously now we can see that, decide how we're going to fit off that. But if my eyes are in the right place, you can see the difference between, a base block and a double and chip versus that fast flow. Everyone's reach blocking. Now it's some kind of outside zone perimeter play. And again, how do you want your players to react to it? Is your front side player being aggressive while your backside player is a little bit slow play? Are they getting their eyes right to the tailback and playing, front hip, back hip? However you want to play that is great, but having your eyes in the right spot, again, now I see that deep mesh in the backfield with that outside zone sort of stretch. And then off of that, if it's play action or RPO, we'll live to play another down. But this outside zone 2, another look you're going to get, another part of the triangle read. Outside zone away, again, now I'm on the back side of it. Does that change things? I have a couple clips of showing how we like to shed blocks when we're taking on this kind of run play. But those are, outside zone 2 and away. And then your pass set, right? You want to read your run and then pass as a linebacker. Usually you're going to have some kind of pass responsibility. If you're reading that triangle, I do think that's a better way to get a quicker, more accurate pass read, right? A little bit of play action in the backfield, but if the offensive linemen are kick sliding and they're getting into their pass pro, whatever that might be, now I can get into my pass draw. Maybe it's a draw, but this is playing the percentages. So think having your eyes in that spot gives you, yes, it's a run pass read, but then, we just talked about what kind of run it is. And then if it's a pass, now I can get my eyes to my pass responsibility and kind of go from there. So those are the main looks. Again, really important point. I think this needs to be adapted to whatever you're seeing, right? You're going to watch film on all your opponents, and what you watch film, through the eyes of your linebackers, what are the pictures that they're seeing through that triangle? And I think that's what you now practice, right? So in our conference, this is a lot of what we're going to see. If you see a lot of buck sweep or, different stuff in your conference, then that's what I would set up to practice when we're working the triangle, which I'll show you kind of how we do it in practice. But I just think the concept of it, showing that system, there's your triangle. These are the kinds of things you're going to see, the pictures you're going to see, and then really hyper defining how you want your players to react, and then practicing it and then reinforcing it on film. So that's kind of the slideshow, Coach. I do have some film. I don't know if you have any questions before I switch over, or any thoughts.
No, it's great. I think, the practicality of all of it is super important. And like you said, we're not talking even about fits. It's just more about how you decide, how do you read through to get to your fit. And I think as we go through the video and it's a little more contextual in the video, and people can see, with the moving pieces, I'll probably throw a couple questions at you, but sure. That's great. And, I think the big thing for people watching is just to really consider, like, how are you communicating this to your players, right? What terminology are you using? Because you want to be consistent, right? The last thing you want is, one of your coaches saying, hey, like, you're reading through the guard, and then another coach saying you're reading through the backfield, or whatever it is, right? Or even just your terminology for how they fit, right? You're talking about the linebacker, figuring out whether, hey, am I getting the zone that's cutting back, or am I getting the zone hitting front side? You don't want one person saying, oh, you got to get up there and fill that B gap, and then the next person said, hey, whoa, a little more patience there. You got to be able to play over the cutback, right? You got to be able to have terminology, within your defensive structure that describes the exact technique you want your player to play when they make that correct read off the triangle.
Definitely. Totally agree. For sure. So a little bit of drill tape. You talked about getting new drill tape. Some of this is from many years ago that I had to dig out. Some's from a little more recent. So the first look at it when you're, starting to rep it, and then even to when you're sort of fine tuning it, a portion of this is sort of at a walk tempo. This is great for pre-practice, off-season stuff in shorts and t-shirt. Then you can obviously ramp it up. I'll show you different ways of working it. We like to do it a lot in Indy. The best part of that is that now your linebackers have to give the look. And that may sound like a disadvantage because the look might not be as good, but they have to know what the offense is trying to do. So you set up these little pictures, and they're on air. There's not even anyone to block, but they have to understand the schemes we're about to see enough to replicate them in a show look. And I think that's huge. I think that really helps guys out. It helps them understand what the offense is trying to do. And just, another piece of the puzzle is just sort of that understanding. So I'll show in a couple ways that we like to steal reps as well. Even here, we're in the gym, so we're replicating tackle, guard, center. There's our linebacker. That's the full drill. Well, we have an extra guy just that day that, is off season, whatever, summer. So instead of wasting a rep, we'll line up an extra guy behind this player and he'll run the rep with him, right? Sometimes we have 3 or 4, running the reps. So now you're just stealing a rep. They're still seeing the same look. They're off a few extra yards and they're not wasting a rep. And now you have your rotation where there's, always 2 players going and seeing it one more time. So just one way to steal reps. But here's just a walk tempo, really dialed in, just seeing that look. And that's the drill, right? We're going to step to a ghost end of a base block. We're going to step to that double. And on this particular day, we were just working, we call this a read shuffle, coming downhill. We're the front side of an inside zone. That's going to be our initial movement. Okay. So again, different times we might want to be more aggressive and hit it. Sometimes, when we see that, our very first step is just that read shuffle while we read. Maybe we're playing an RPO team. And as we're read shuffling, our eyes are to the backfield. I've already diagnosed that it's either an inside zone coming at me or they're trying to make me think it is. And now my eyes, I can still see that, but I'm more focused on the backfield. I can see, is it a handoff coming at me, a handoff being cut back, an RPO where the quarterback pulls it, or play action. So just all that happening just within this one step where we show that base block double team, and we're going to just work that read shuffle coming downhill. And that's it. That's the whole drill. So that's one of our starting points. We do that pre-practice, obviously a light tempo, just sort of getting the juices flowing on that one. Then in practice, we can ramp it up a little bit. And then we start talking a little bit about a concept of that integrated indie. So that's something we really like to talk about. So obviously we have our indie periods where the linebackers are together and the D-lines together and the DBs are together. We spend a lot of time bringing those intermingling sort of those groups into drills. So we'll bring maybe the D ends with the linebackers to work something really specific, or, the D tackles and the ends and halfbacks and the linebacker to work sort of that picture. So we really want to try to work those kinds of things and just sort of ramp up the tempo a little bit usually when we get to that. But here's the same kind of picture, just working that linebacker, working that same look, right? There's the base block, there's the double and chip coming, and we're just going to come downhill and sort of get to that fit. So that's an inside zone coming right at us. We're simulating that the back's coming to hit it. And that's kind of that picket fence that we all want to get to, where we have a defender in each gap and we're sort of working it. We talk about different ways of handling this guard. And sort of based on, what's happening through the flow of the play. So there's really three main things that are going to happen here. This guard's either going to get off really quickly because, he's gotten a good knockoff and he's overtaken it, as and he's coming and he's, getting to me quickly, right? That's one way we're going to take on that block. And for that, we like to use our hands a little more, use sort of that bully technique, get the feet hot, push, pull. That's kind of what we're thinking about there. Sometimes the other extreme is that they just stay on that double no matter what. I mean, it's probably not your plan, but through the course of the game, the eyes are wrong or whatever, and we get that pure run through. And that's just going to happen. So we practice it, right? Let's, when we practice this look, we say, let's stay on that double, just an extra beat. And now the linebacker knows he's going to have a run through and we're going to work that. The last one that can be really challenging is when we think we have that run through and he comes off at the last second and kind of knocks us off our track. So we want to be ready for that too. Now we'll use probably more of a rip or a strike technique. When it comes off late, we don't want to be surprised by it. We want to handle that block and either squeeze it or defeat it with power and rip and pry. So those are kind of three pictures within the picture that's within the picture of a back hitting front side that we also want to work. And again, not so that players are thinking about it during the game, just so that we can practice it. So they've done it, their bodies can react to it. And again, we're not surprised when that guy comes off late and sort of knocks us off. There's the look. So next thing we do, depending on how many players we have with us here, we're just working the double team. But key here is we're adding in the quarterback tailback mesh to train our eyes to see that double and chip. And now we're going to read that quarterback running back mesh and react appropriately. So the first one here is just going to be a front side press. There's the double and chip. We're pressing the back. So we're going to press the gap. Again, probably use hat and hands and just sort of work that look. If I do this right on my fast forward, because it's all one clip here, you want to see Dezane. Okay, same look. So the other thing I should have mentioned, I'm not going to skip ahead. I like to stand behind the drill, and that way I can give the direction to the offensive players. So when we first do this, everyone knows that we're just working front side of inside zone. So they know what's happening. We rep it. We get the feel of it. Then maybe we'll pick one other look and rep it. And then eventually I'm standing back there and I'm telling the offense which look we want. So now we're reacting to it. So for this drill, for instance, we knew it was a double and chip coming at us, but I'm just going to tell the running back, you're either going to press it or you're going to take it and you're going to cut back. And that's the variable that we're now working. So you see Dezane here is going to do a good job. He's going to see the double and chip. He's going to get his eyes to the right spot. So there's his read shuffle. He's playing it honest. But like you'll see, that back's cutting back right now or coming right up field. Now he's going to rock back, right? Try to take a good angle and be there to fit up and just make the play. So that's another variable that we'll add into this.
Do you mind just going back to that clip, Coach? Because this is, sure, I think, something that I saw more in, I guess, 2019, 2020, our last season there before, this fall when U Sports will be back up and running, is a lot more of this from linebackers for coaches that might be, and I grew up in the school of, hey, you got a gap, you play through your gap, do the football, right? This is obviously different. The backer here still has the B gap, as we saw in the last clip. Why has like this like option, I guess I'll call it like an option of how you could run fit, the inside zone, like why has that gained a little popularity, and when would you want your backers to be more patient against the zone as opposed to be immediate and sudden and play through their gap in the traditional sense?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, if we're going to get into like sort of football theory, which I love talking about, I really think this is probably a byproduct of all the RPOs, right? When we could see that base and double and see that inside zone thing developing, 3-4 years ago, we'd just hit it. And we could, right? Now all of a sudden, offenses are going to make you pay if you're doing that consistently at our level, right? If you're just hitting it, it's pull out and it's a throw. So I think that's probably slowed the linebackers down a little bit. And now all of a sudden we're a little more read and react. It's Canadian football. We can take that extra beat, get that read, still limit the game, and live to play another down. Whereas if it's an RPO, you're not getting quite as good a read. We're not just flying down and making that huge contour. We can still be aggressive and sort of play both a little bit. And now that's opened us up to being free to rock back and sort of make the play on the backside. That's my quick answer as far as the evolution of it. I don't know if it's totally accurate, but that's the first thing that popped in the top of my head, Coach.
Yeah, no, that's kind of where I'm thinking about it too. Like it's interesting, like you said, 3 or 4 years ago, it's a little more consistent, right? Like everyone has a gap, and for the most part, I think especially at most levels of football in this country, your gap sound, right? You don't get into the American like too high, and one of the safeties is going to come off the roof to play the run, or the corners in the run fit or whatever. You're typically dealing more with, hey, like if we have a fullback, then they're going to have 7. If we're in one back, then they're going to have 6. But one of the interesting things to me was, like you said, the linebackers being able to say, hey, like we're not really defending like 2-yard runs anymore. You know what I mean? Like we're not worried about 2 or 3 yards. When we play a team that is more of a pass team and they're using the RPOs as a huge part of the run game, we're going to give up 3-yard runs. Like we're not defending 3-yard runs. It's a little bit like I think in basketball, how the 3-point game has changed how you play defense in basketball.
Sure.
Back in the day, you'd help off almost anybody. Right. Whereas now you watch, and I know the NBA is not always the place for great defensive basketball, but there's guys where you just, hey, you don't help off that player. Right. Even if we give up a layup. Right. And that would have back in the day would have been, sacrilege. What do you mean you're giving up a layup? We're going to foul that guy with 5 guys before we get the layup. And I think it's similar in football in that. And this fit is, like you said, become a kind of a byproduct of the importance of defending the pass and the RPO. And it actually, as an offensive lineman, makes my life hard because I want the linebacker to be in one place and stay right. In the past, it's been about surviving the collision with the linebacker. Now I got to find him first.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that it's kind of like when I first saw this, I was like, aren't you guys giving up like, front side zone? Like, isn't this thing, how are you handling that? But it's one of those things where, you see it enough. And it's like, yeah, we give up a couple plays on the front side when we don't make the correct read. And again, like you said before, when the back presses the front side gap and commits, then we're going to go hit it
fast. Yeah.
Right. But we're not going to jump into a gap that the football is not necessarily in and kind of cancel ourselves out. I heard Don Brown once, I forget, I think it was on Make Defense Great Again podcast. It might've been the first one I ever listened to actually with Coach Vass there. He talked about never giving up 1 for 1. Like we're never gonna say, yep, I'm gonna put one piece here and you're gonna put one piece there and they'll cancel out. Always trying to play a gap and a half. And I think that's where, and when I was with Laurier and in the summer ball I've coached, like we've always run a very downhill inside zone. And I think that's becoming more prevalent now too, where like that thing's cutting back. Even if you watch the old Dylan Campbell highlights for us 6 years ago, that thing's cutting back all the time.
For sure. Yeah.
Right. And so we did really well. It was easier for us, frankly, when everyone was, even outside of the RPO, when everyone was just hammering gaps front side, because it let, we had some really good one cut runners and, everyone hits it. There's my daylight. Take it. Right. As opposed to when, the D line hit it. Now one of the linebackers hit it. It's hard to be really, as an offensive guy, That's what stresses me out as the running backs coach on the opposite side, planning my indie for how I'm reading your guys on the other side of the field. You know, it's
ability to get an extra guy to that point of attack is, you know, it's nice to have on defense for sure. And then that's, same kind of looks there. So a little bit of practice film, just kind of showing it again from a few years ago here. I think this play shows it well. Again, talking about that picture, and that same picture will show up even on this play in multiple spots. So if I'm this linebacker, I'm seeing that picture that we've just been kind of drilling, right? But if I'm this linebacker, I'm seeing the same picture. We're there, and there, right? So both those guys working that same drill, they're working exactly what they're seeing on this play. Focusing on this play right here, just to talk about that read shuffle, you know, that's what we're talking about, right? Seeing that triangle, it's telling this player that it's an inside zone, you know, it's going to press in this direction. So we get that read shuffle to put us in good position. And now it's, you know, what's happening. On this particular play, you know, the back's going to come straight forward. We're going to come straight forward, and it's back to that old school football you were kind of talking about. And we got there in one step, but we just went through the progression that I just talked about, right? There's the picture opening up. Take that read shuffle. It's hitting. Let's go hit it. And we're still able to make contact at the line of scrimmage, even being a little safe on the RPO and being a little more sure about what we're seeing based on that triangle read. Similarly here, okay, here you're going to see Gord White, inside zone working this way. He's going to read shuffle. He's going to see that cutback, and he's able to rock back like we talked about, and he's fitting in that gap on the backside because that's where the ball goes sort of right away. So same kind of initial look, two different reactions from the running back, and now we sort of get an extra player at that point of attack. So just what we've kind of been talking about there, you sort of see it at closer to game speed. And then all the way to a full game, I mean, same thing. You know, both of these linebackers are going to see exactly what we just talked about in that drill. So 42 here, he's seeing the base. There's the double developing to a chip. 55 is seeing this step, and then the double developing to a chip. So again, it's just a picture that shows up over and over again. The players are going to see it. You know, how do you want to react to it? How do you want to practice that? Here, if you watch just 55, this looks like in the gym, there's your read shuffle. He's moving with his gap because he's seen what the play is. Now he can get eyes on the tailback. This one just gets to a bit of a mess of bodies here, but we end up okay because we're just sort of read shuffling, just what we kind of talked about. You're just seeing it sort of happen in real time on the field here. There's that picture, right? You're going to see it. Base, double and chip. What do you want your backers to do? Same thing, one more time. I think same game. Okay, there's that same picture opening up. We're going to read shuffle. We're going to read shuffle with our gap. And now it's eyes to the tailback. Okay, this ends up being a bit more of a conventional looking fit where you all end up at the line of scrimmage. And we're in pretty good shape. So you see it in Indy, you see it in practice, you see it in a game. And then just a couple looks here. You know, right now, everything's exactly the same. Right, base, double. You see this helmet right here, read shuffling with the play, but it's going to be a pass. And up until now, we don't know it's going to be a pass. We're moving with our gap with the read shuffle to be in good position on the run. But now if it's a pass, we can put our foot in the ground and we're still in, decent position to at least be there to affect it, help out on the tackle. It's probably not going to be an interception. But we're a presence. We're not battling a guard in the B gap right now. We're live sort of in the passing game. Same kind of look here from this angle. You'll see this player. This is a pretty good look at it. Right now, based on his triangle, right, that's an inside zone going away. And if you watch his reaction to it, he's shuffling with his gap. He's in good shape, right? But now it's a pass. He puts that foot in the ground. He's in his pass drop, and he's right underneath that receiver. So he's in pretty good shape. So we're not, we're playing it honest. We don't know what the play is going to be. The offense might not know what the play is going to be. If it's an RPO, they're reading us, right? So we read shuffle with it. Now we see that quarterback has pulled the ball, and now we can pull the shoot. We say, get in coverage. We're in pretty good shape. So that's most of the front side of the inside zone look or the inside zone stuff. Read shuffling with the play and then reacting on the ball carrier, I think puts us in a pretty good shape consistently. And most of this is from a few years ago, playing more of that. that style. So again, here, just showing a couple different ways of drilling it. Here we're working the backside. We have a DB, we have a D end, we have a D tackle, and we have a linebacker, and we're working Indy, right? So this particular week, out of this from years ago, we were working on, dealing with this kind of motion and how are we going to deal with this picture, which was the backside of the inside zone, right? So again, as a defensive coordinator, how do you guys want to deal with this? Are you flying downhill and taking on that tackle, mano a mano? Are you doing some kind of exchange where you're here? Are you allowing this player to win with speed, coming back on it? Whatever you guys decide you want to do, this is a nice way to work it. Just getting a lot of players involved and working this backside of the inside zone, this picture. Another way to, same clip here, another way to steal some reps. Now we have 2 shoots, right? So we're in helmets here. This could be a walkthrough period. This could be, any point in your practice or your season. The whole goal is to have as few guys sitting around as possible, right? So if you want to work something specific like this, we'll set up 2 shoots. So we're doing the same drill mirrored. We have defensive backs again. We have ends. We have linebackers. The D tackles are probably working some Indy somewhere else, and we're just working this backside of the inside zone. I'm standing back here somewhere, giving the direction to both offenses. And again, now the DBs need to understand what's going on. The linebackers and DNs need to understand how the run fit works. And we're just working the same look twice with these sort of 2 shoots, just working that triangle read. I got into, the time's going fast here, Coach, so I don't want to go too crazy here. I got a couple more clips here to show.
Absolutely. No, you're good. You're good. It's been great so far. And I think the translation directly from, hey, this is what we're looking at in walkthroughs in the gym all the way through the game tape is valuable.
That's great. So the next look is just, the front side of an outside zone. Again, so things are happening faster now. You see a different kind of mesh. The look's not always perfect from the show guys, but again, at least they're understanding sort of what the offense is trying to do. And we spend a lot of time, dealing with how we're going to shed those blocks of those offensive linemen now that we're out in space, right? We talked about the inside zone coming downhill, sort of the 3 ways, however that guard's coming off the double, 3 ways. We want to talk about beating that block. We do the same kind of thing when we talk about meeting a block out in space. So here's, again, a little bit of gym work. The thought process is this, and I sort of broke this down on another talk I gave, but one of the advantages we have as defensive players over a blocker, as you might appreciate this as an offensive line guy, is I can see the ball carrier throughout the course of the play, and you can't always see the ball carrier, right? I think that's probably accurate. You're looking this way, I'm looking this way. You can't see the ball carrier, but I can. So I'm going to use that to my advantage when I'm trying to beat that block out in space, right? If you're nice and close to the ball carrier, this doesn't work as well. But if there's space between the ball carrier and the blocker, I can use speed now and give a little bit of a head fake and sort of win in space. So there's 2 main ways to do that in my thought process. You can either beat them across their face, using a rip or some kind of speed move across their face, or you can come back inside because the ball carrier is cut back, and now I can win in space sort of that way. So same kind of thing here. We're going to win across the face in the gym, right? We're just going to work on ripping across that blocker's face and then continuing on to make the tackle, because the ball carrier is past the blocker and I can use my speed. I don't need to take that block on, right? Ripping across the face. A couple quick clips of that here. I think we're going to watch this player just in practice. Again, you meet this blocker out in space, you can rip across the face, sort of continue on to the play. So we don't always need to take that guy on. We can sometimes win with speed. Here we are in a game. Again, this player right here, he's going to read his triangle. He's going to diagnose that outside zone, right? See it really quickly. And now just rip across that blocker's face. Doesn't really need to take that block on because the ball carrier has overrun the blocker. We can continue on to the play. If the ball carrier has cut back or things are slow developing or just sort of out of sync, we can do what we call, punching back inside. So now we're just working that in the gym. We're coming downhill. We're going to punch back inside the block and make the tackle. A couple good reps here. Okay, coming downhill, there's the block out in space. We punch back inside, make the play, and then here we are in a game. I like this clip using sort of the exact same technique the way we drill it. He's going to read the triangle, diagnose an outside zone. He's going to meet this block in space, and now he's able to punch back inside with his hands. Okay, make that tackle. So the triangle read is getting us going. Our eyes are now to the back to see, their track. And when I meet that block, I can either win with speed inside or rip across the face and continue on to the play. So that's one of our thoughts on that kind of play. And then the last thing to mention is, pullers, right? So now because our eyes are on the triangle, now we can work on just seeing, down blocks and a pull, getting to the point of attack. And again, the final fit is going to be based on how you're teaching your run fits. But I think the real key is just getting those players started by seeing that pull and starting to work. So if we watch the backside here, if our eyes are right and we're watching this triangle, okay, right now, the quarterback doesn't even have the ball yet. And if I'm reading my triangle, I know there's a puller. I'm on the backside of some kind of power. Sure, it could be an RPO or a play action, but a backfield read, I'm waiting a lot longer than this here, where, like I said, I love showing this to the guy. The quarterback doesn't even have the ball. I already see it down and pull, and I already know if it's a run, that's my point of attack, and however you want to fit that, it's up to you guys. So that's why we want to get our eyes sort of to the right spot. I think there's one more here. Same kind of, it's a good look at it, right? Seeing that triangle, this player here, he sees the down and pull. He knows it's a power. He can follow that helmet. You see this helmet, follow that helmet, work to the point of attack, and we want to win across the face of that block or however your fit's going to be and sort of make the play. So that's sort of the spiel, coach. That's the thought process. I don't know if you have any follow-ups or any thoughts on that.
No, it's great stuff. And I think, especially this time of year, these are some things that if you don't get them right early in the year, it can cause you bigger problems as the year goes on, right? And as any season goes on, you're always dealing with the next offense or whatever it is, but you're going to get something from that offense where your linebackers have to make correct decisions. And I think understanding the process and of what is a triangle read and how can you coach to your players. And then what I love is just the progression, right? From the walkthrough pace in the gym to scrimmage to games, you see it show up consistently. And I think one of the things I'm trying to remember as I get back into really coaching for the first time in a year and a half is, drilling what you see, right? Like there's a million drills you can do, but start with what you see the most, you know what I mean? And this is something that, this kind of approach, if you're going to read through the guard and even say you could be coaching Pee-wee football, right? Just start with the guard.
Definitely
goes one way or the other way. Then you might, especially in Pee-wee, you might have to look to the back because sometimes the guard goes the wrong way. But
yeah,
if your running back is secondary and you're able to get through both, in your read progression, it gives you a lot of power at the second level. So that was great, coach. And like I said, to anyone who's watching this, check out all24.ca. They've got a ton of great stuff that I've used and kind of taking a look at for things that I do as a coach. So not even as someone who makes videos like this, enjoying it, but purely as a coach myself. It's been great. So thanks again, coach. And look forward to seeing some more U Sport football this fall, and people getting back to football coast to coast. So thanks a lot for making the time. The couple of questions I got were kind of answered as we went through. So it looks like we can hop off the live here. Thanks again for everyone who's tuning in. We're gonna I know we had said before the break that we were going to switch from Tuesdays, but our practice schedule got changed. So we're going to stick with Tuesday night live streams through here. So stay tuned. We have a lot of interesting stuff coming. Going to put some stuff out on our community page, which lets us share more than videos, which will be fun. It's playbook stuff, installs, things like that. So stay tuned.